Hello, and welcome to the Game Design Archive with Edward and Ludwig, episode
Hello.
5.
Yes.
Today we are gonna talk about RNG and skill.
Yes. So, people often talk about RNG in a way that it conflicts with skill somehow. Like, either a game is skill-based or it's RNG. Or they say that everything that's RNG is to the detriment of skill, right?
Yep.
And we don't agree with that at all.
Yeah. I think there is people, obviously, that agree with our standpoint as well, because there's a lot of games that do it, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not saying no one does, but generally speaking about game design, people have this sort of negative view of RNG,
Yes.
I guess.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Do you have any? Should we start with a game? A good example. Should we start with the example to end all examples?
Sure.
Blood Bowl. We were thinking about the same game, right?
No, but we can start there.
Okay, we can start with Blood Bowl at
Yeah.
least.
We are probably gonna go back to Blood Bowl during this conversation because it's a very, very, very well designed game in my opinion.
Yes.
It's probably one of the best designed games with a lot of RNG.
Yes. So, for those of you who don't know what Blood Bowl is, it's a turn-based strategy game, player versus player, where you have two teams going against each other and they're playing American football, but it's very violent and bloody and they
It's
kill
like
each other.
fantasy. Yeah.
Yeah. And the thing about Blood Bowl that's so interesting is that it's super, super competitive, but it basically everything in that game depends on RNG in some way.
Yeah. There's basically no action that does not require
Yeah.
roll of a dice or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Or a
And the RNG is also very ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
Like when you can, for example, tackle another player, and when you tackle them, there's like a chance that you just die instead.
Yeah.
Like it's to that level. It's like you could kill him, but you could also die.
Yeah. I mean, obviously that's not the common case. So like,
Yeah. You could die. And I think that's the sort of the point here, that it's not the common case. Because the way Blood Bowl works is that the sort of base value, I guess, or the odds, because Blood Bowl is basically all about manipulating the odds, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, if I take one guy who has some amount of stats, and then I go against an enemy who has the same amount of stats, the odds that either I or he dies are basically the same, right?
Yeah.
But the thing that makes Blood Bowl so interesting is that there are so many things you can do that basically change the odds in certain directions,
you
right?
mitigate it.
So,
or whatever.
yeah. So for example, you can if you place another guy next to the guy you're tackling, the other guy helps with his stats, right? So suddenly you get to roll 2 dice and then you pick the best choice out of those. I think that's how it works, right? It was a while ago I played
something
it.
like that.
Yeah. And so on. And I feel like I'm just kind of explaining how Blood Bowl works.
It's good because it's gonna be a useful example for this.
Yeah. And so basically, yeah, so it's like, oh yeah, if what ends up happening, right, is that, if I just rush up to the enemy with my guy and I try to kill him, it's like a 50-50 that I kill him or he kills me.
Or hit him.
Or like,
no, it's football.
or there's
We're not
like,
killing anyone, right? I mean,
yeah, true. Well, you could die.
Yeah,
but,
I know. But
But then there are so many things you can do that like actively change the odds, so that all of a sudden it's like, okay, yeah, I'm basically guaranteed to not die here.
Yeah.
And that's all that Blood Bowl is about, because like everything you do can lead to disaster, so you need to do everything in a way where you like completely mitigate risks.
Yes.
And one very interesting effect of this is that one very important thing you need to do when playing Blood Bowl is you need to kind of be careful of the order you do things in, right?
Yeah, this is
because, like,
probably the most interesting mechanic in this game.
Yeah. Because Blood Bowl also has a mechanic called turnovers. And what they basically mean is that if you fail an action, I don't think it's all actions, but many actions, you lose your turn and it goes to the other player.
Yeah.
And that sounds
even if you have
absolutely
actions left, right? So it's
yeah, exactly.
So you just lose all those actions basically.
Yeah, exactly. So like if you have, I don't know, is it like 10 or 11 on your team?
Yeah.
Then in theory you could do 11 actions, but if you fail an action after you've played with 7 characters, you don't get to play with the rest of them, right?
Yeah.
And this creates a very interesting scenario because all of a sudden you need to like consider like, okay, if I use this guy to do this, the odds that this succeeds are kind of low, so maybe I should use this guy to support this and then run up with the other guy here. And it becomes like so insanely like deep and interesting, and like what's interesting is that it's so competitive, right? It's kind of hard to explain because it doesn't sound very competitive when you say, oh yeah, there's like a 50-50 chance that you blow up randomly. Like,
yeah,
I don't know.
I guess there's a sort of similarity to certain like card or dice games, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what people I would consider poker pretty competitive, right?
Yeah, that's true.
And that's also like it's essentially the same thing. It's just risk mitigation.
Yeah.
Well,
poker also has like a social aspect, I guess.
Well, sure.
Which,
but I mean, if you're playing for money or whatever,
really
right? Then it's a bit. You know, people play for a lot of money sometimes.
Yeah,
even
but
though
in
it's
poker, for example,
random is what people are saying, right?
Yeah.
Oh, it's a game of random or whatever. But it's very obvious that the people that make all the money are skilled, right?
Yeah. Well, the thing I'm trying to say is like in poker you could bluff, for example. You could like make it seem like you have good cards.
Yeah, there is other
which you can't do in Blood Bowl because
that
like
true,
Blood Bowl is 100% pure RNG basically.
Yeah, that is true actually. Yeah, so you can. Yeah, maybe that's how people view it. And yeah, I haven't thought about that actually. So what you're saying is that the social, like you'll do social. Yeah, you'll bluff.
Exactly.
Stuff
to social engineering.
That's how you mitigate your risk, is what you're saying. Yeah, exactly. I guess that's true, actually. Yeah.
But also, I guess there's like good theory, like statistics.
Yeah,
I
mean, you need to like figure out
Yeah.
that. Okay, I have this or whatever, and what do they probably have or whatever, right? Yeah. I mean, I'm not a poker player, but I can see that there is a lot of skill involved.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's funny because. A lot of people would argue, and maybe this is true, I'm not going to argue it, right? But a lot of people would argue that a game like chess, for example, which has no RNG, is way more skill-based than something like Blood Bowl or poker or whatever, right? Something with a lot of RNG. And I don't know if that's necessarily true.
No, I actually have a completely different game.
Go ahead.
That's... a recurring game here on the channel, and that's CS.
Okay.
So I play a lot of CS, and CS is obviously known as a very competitive game. And one of the things that CS has, because CS doesn't have a lot of RNG, and I think, you know, if you would ask the average CS player, like, is RNG good for competitive gaming? They would say like, no, it's stupid. Everything should be like 100% deterministic, whatever.
Yep.
But CS does have one source of RNG, maybe more, but there's one pretty big one, and that's weapon spread. Do you see where I'm going here?
Well, I thought the spread was not random in CS.
It is random. It's sort of random. So what CS does, it has a recoil pattern. And spread. So it's like it follows a rough pattern, but there's like a slight deviation in every bullet, you know. And the thing, you know, people often say like, oh yeah, the like bullet spread is so BS, you know, because I was following the pattern perfectly and it didn't hit. Oh, whatever, like the game sucks.
Yep.
And those people are wrong. And the reason for that is that the recoil the spread is a way to sort of balance the weapons around their role, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, if you have an SMG that you're supposed to use when you're really close, they usually have more spread, right?
Yeah.
So that you can't use them to snipe.
Yeah.
And so, if you complain that, oh yeah, this SMG is not skill-based because there's a lot of spread, it's like, no, it's skill-based because you should know when to use the SMG and when not to use it.
Yeah.
Do you see where I'm going?
I see, yeah.
And I think it's, so if you look at like other FPS games, this is sort of like, you know, it's the typical, like, this was way back in like 2010 or something. But like, you know, when Battlefield and COD were kind of competing, and COD had spread and the Battlefield had recoil, and people were always like arguing, oh, recoil is so much better and spread is so much better, whatever. And it's like, it seems to me when I read about these things, like even today, people seem to think that spread is bad because it's basically RNG.
Right, yeah. But that is, not to say, how should I phrase this? So that's actually numbers that are just, what is a good way to say this? They are essentially so random that they are not useful, but that's the point, right? You could have... yeah, I think you get what I mean. Like the point is to make it not possible to use it, basically.
Not reliable.
In certain situations, right? So long range with a short range or whatever.
It forces you to play around the RNG, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. Because, you know, the SMG has a lot of spread, but if you use it up close, the spread doesn't matter. Right? It's sort of that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so, like, very accurate weapons have less spread, and, you know, so they're balanced in that way. But, like, you know, if we go back to CS, for example, it's like the AWP doesn't have spread, right? Unless you're moving. But if you're standing still, the AWP doesn't have any spread. It's, like, completely 100% accurate. But, like, the AK, it has spread, but it's very low. So it's like, you know, it's like the AK is accurate, but the AWP is even more accurate. Mm-hmm. Kind of like that, you know. And what was the game? Yeah, you were talking about chess in the beginning, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that's sort of a weird, maybe a weird game to like tie into CS, but that's sort of what I think the misunderstanding is. It's that, like, you know, people say that chess is, or it's good that chess is 100% predictable, right?
Yeah.
Which, it's not bad, right? It depends on what kind of, you could make a game that's 100% predictable, that's still good.
Yeah.
But like making it unpredictable is not bad either. It just creates a different game.
Yeah.
Right? If, like, let's say I would take the queen and change the queen so that if I attacked someone from 5 spaces away or more, there was a 50% chance the queen would die. It wouldn't make chess a less skill-based game, but it would change how I use the queen, right? Because I wouldn't attack from far away. Like, it's a pretty stupid example, but you kind of get what I'm trying to say.
I mean, there is this famous... I don't remember where I read about this, and I could misquote this example, but it's like you play chess, but every time you try to hit a piece, you roll a dice to see who wins. Yeah. And I think the argument there, I could be wrong, is that wouldn't be fun, but I don't know. That could be interesting, I think.
I don't know. Maybe not exactly for chess. Like,
I mean, the problem, like, okay. Obviously, that specific scenario would be super boring because there is. This is the problem, right, with RNG, because people just say these things and don't think about it. So what would happen in this case, right, is that there would be no strategy around it. So there would be no there would be no point for the RNG, right? It would just change stuff. Mm-hmm. Because there's nothing you can do about the odds. But as soon as you can change the odds in any way, or play around the odds, I guess, the odds can't just be 50-50 or whatever, right?
Yeah.
There needs to be something to play around. And like, let's say if you have 2 pieces, right, close, then it's higher chance or whatever. Yeah. Then all of a sudden it's...
I think that's why Blood Bowl is such a good example, right? Because everything in that game is RNG, but you can with everything that is RNG, you can do things to mitigate the RNG.
Yeah.
It's
but
like
I mean, the thing with your example is that it's the same sort of. So the way I think the problem for a lot of people is that when they look at RNG, they think about the direct action or whatever, right? They have this action in front of them, and it's, oh, I'm gonna do this, and there is a 50% chance that it succeeds.
Yeah.
And they fail, and then the game is stupid. But even with your CS example, there is something you can if we made your CS example a turn-based game, it's essentially okay. If I am 1 meter away, the odds of hitting is like 90% if I can aim, right? But if I am 20 meters away, it's some low percent, right? And so the correct strategy is to go closer, right?
Yeah.
Which is the same as in Blood Bowl or whatever, right? What you do is you don't, because what you would do, you wouldn't even shoot if you know what you're doing, right? At that range, it's a waste of your bullets. And it's the same in Blood Bowl. You wouldn't just do some random action, right? Because
exactly, because like the whole point of RNG is to not put yourself in situations where the bad RNG can fuck things up for you. I guess what you're trying to say is that people don't look at the bigger picture.
Yes.
Like in some way. Yeah. It's like they see, as you said, it's like this shot in XCOM. There's a 70% chance that I hit.
Yeah.
And if I miss that, the game sucks. But it's like, okay, but why did you take a shot that was 70%? That's not super high, right?
Yeah.
Or like, if you're gonna take a shot that's 70%, make it a not very important shot, right? Yeah. That's fine.
I will say something about XCOM though, because we're probably gonna talk about that a bit now. Before we start, I think there is a valid argument about XCOM's RNG because people get angry about it a lot, and that is that game looks ridiculous sometimes.
Yeah,
it's like, okay, you have the alien right in front of you, right? And you're like, and like you said, it's 70% chance, but 70% chance is not that high. It's like, I mean, it's. Can you make it? It's like 7 out of 10, right? That's the smallest unit you can make it. Yeah. So like there is almost a 25%. I mean, there is 25. It's more than 25, right?
It's 30.
Yeah, it's 30.
Yeah.
Math. Oh my god.
Can't you take 10 minus 7?
No, I can't. I'm sorry. Also, I said 70%, which means there's 30% left. Sorry. The point is, it's very high. If you do. Yeah, if you do like 5 or 6 things, it's very likely one of them is gonna fail, right? I don't need to explain it; it's obvious.
Yeah, I think one.
But then, it's funny. Sorry, I just need to say that. But then you look at the scenario, right? You're trying to shoot the alien, and it's like your guy is standing, and it's like his gun is 1 meter from the alien's head, and then it's like he shoots, and it clearly shoots him, because there's this like delay, and then the like alien just dodges it through. I don't even remember, but it's ridiculous, and then it just misses, and you're like, what the actual.
The feedback sucks in that game because it's like you said, it's like there's a different, like when you shoot, it's always the same animation, right? So it's like you're shooting at the guy and it looks like I'm shooting at the guy, but then there's like, as you said, there's a short delay, and then it plays the dodge animation or the death animation or whatever. So it like looks completely stupid. By the way, can you hear the fucking storm outside my window? I hope it isn't ruining the audio. But
it is a bit. You could, wait, do you have a window open?
No.
It's gonna be fine, probably.
Yeah, I can move closer to the mic. Here we go.
Yeah.
Is it better?
Yeah, I mean, I can hear it when you talk, but it's fine.
Okay, yeah, but you can still hear me, right?
Yes,
That's the point. Yes. Okay, good. So so it looks super stupid, right? And like that's because they've basically made it look like as bad as it possibly could, because it looks like you're gonna hit and then you don't, and like that's like because optimized.
They could have like the gun jams or something, right? And or like something, but
or like just make it look like the guy is missing when he shoots, because it doesn't look like.
But even that would look kind of ridiculous, because it would be like he aims and then he like I don't know.
Yeah. You could do some animation stuff to make it look better. But also, one thing that I think is like a problem with XCOM is that XCOM is very unclear about how you increase your odds of hitting, basically.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, it's very, very like, oh yeah, if you're in cover, the chance to hit decreases. But like, you can't look at a square and then look at where the enemy is and see, okay, when I'm standing over there, I'm gonna have this % chance to hit.
Yeah.
It's very, very like hidden, like how the background calculations work.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things that also makes XCOM a pretty bad example of an RNG implementation, I guess.
Right, but that goes for most computer-based RNG games, I would say.
Yeah,
they all think that way for some reason.
Yeah.
Like, because my favorite example is Fire Emblem, right?
Yeah.
Where that game has a lot of interesting mechanics, but they explain
well, it's not that the mechanics aren't explained, because like in Fire Emblem you can calculate the hit chance, right? It's like if you know the formula
or whatever.
Exactly.
I mean, it wouldn't be. It wouldn't. It's a bit rough, right? But you could do like an estimate.
But isn't it like one stat minus some other times?
A lot of them are, but then it's like hit chance is like weird, right? But you could do like an estimate or something. Like it's around this. But then also, we can get there later. But it's like, I don't remember what it's called, like double RNG, which is very common, which is garbage. I don't remember what it's called.
We'll talk about that later. We're gonna roast it. But going back to XCOM, the problem with XCOM is that like you basically can't calculate the chance to hit like before you've looked at the chance to hit.
Sure. Yeah.
It's like because you could be standing right next to someone, and it could look like a really good spot to shoot someone from, but actually your chance to hit is 10% because of some weird reason. And it's like almost impossible for you to know what that % chance is before you've actually like tried shooting the guy, right? And I think that's the big problem with like XCOM and like bad implementations of RNG in general. It's that you need the gameplay needs to be about mitigating the RNG, right? And that's why Blood Bowl is so good, because Blood Bowl is super clear about what happens. Yeah. It's like, okay, if your guy has this amount of stats higher than this guy, you get more dice to throw. Or like,
I mean, it's also because it's based on a board game, right?
Yeah.
So you need to be able to calculate all the things manually.
Yeah, exactly. That's the main thing. Like, because sometimes it's kind of hard, because like you have this like zone of control thing, and it's like people can cancel each other's zone of control out, but it's like you could still do it. Like you could look and see, this is a good idea to place this guy here, and you can kind of plan ahead without making the move, I guess, is the important part. Because in XCOM you need to make the move and then see if it's good or bad.
Yeah.
And that means that, like, obviously if you're like really good at XCOM and you've played 1,000 hours, you probably have a good sense. You could probably even calculate it. But like, I've played XCOM games for maybe like 20-30 hours and I have no clue. I'm just like guessing.
Yeah, I think that is a benefit of the Fire Emblem style of movement. I think we've talked about this before at some point. That like your action is not complete unless you do a final action or whatever you want to call it. So if you trade or if you attack, which means you can try a bunch of moves. So you don't actually, like if you're lazy, you don't need to do the math. You can check.
That's a good point.
You can check like, okay, this guy can kill this guy and this is gonna hit probably, and you can move stuff around and check. And I think that's one of the bigger, because you could just, if XCOM had something like that, you could get around it a bit at least. Yeah.
I think also one problem with XCOM, and it's not only XCOM, but it's that it's ranged based, right?
Yeah.
Because it becomes very like, okay, I'm standing on one square somewhere and there's another guy standing on a square far away, and it's like, how the fuck do I calculate what my chance to hit that guy is? Whereas if it's a melee combat game, it's like this guy is standing in hills terrain, so he has 10%, I have 10% less chance to hit or something like that. It's more easy to calculate when you're like standing next to each other, I guess, because you don't have to take into account other squares or whatever, or hexes,
Yep.
as people enjoy using.
Yeah, hexes. I don't like them, but that's
another episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess. Do you have anything you want to say about this?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of things. I basically don't know.
Yeah, but like about what we were just talking about.
I mean, XCOM. Does XCOM run the double RNG thing?
I think one of them do.
Yeah, I think the
don't
first
remember.
one does.
Yeah.
I guess we could talk about that a bit.
Yeah, we could. Let's move on to that.
Yeah. So
Do you want to start?
A lot of games. I don't know what the current like thinking about it is. So I feel like it's some games think it's bad and some don't. But it's I hate that I don't remember the name. But it's you roll 2 dice basically, and you pick. I mean, there's different implementations of it, right? But basically, what it does is you don't roll one number and pick that number. You roll 2 numbers and then you do something with them, like taking.
Picking the best one.
Yeah, it's usually not picking the best one, but it's basically a formula that makes the RNG go up, right? In some way. On the higher numbers. So what would happen is like 70% will be like 80 or 90.
Yeah. But doesn't it do it the other way too? So like 20% is actually like 10.
Yeah, it does. But sorry, our earlier example, Fire Emblem, right? Yeah. They have a double thing. So it's real RNG below 50.
Okay.
On some of them. So it's this weird formula above, right? Where it goes to like so basically, how the RNG ends up in that game is if you have like 90% chance to hit it, it's like 98 or 97 or something.
Yeah.
So it's lying about the RNG basically.
Yeah.
And
I think.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. Oh, did you?
No, I was just gonna say that that's stupid because I mean, why would I don't see. If you're gonna play this game and learn this game and then it lies about RNG, that's kind of shitty, honestly, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Like, why would you want to play a game that's not honest about its numbers? That seems lame.
Yeah, I think that's. I think one thing that like game designers or people who speak about game design often talk about is like how people aren't exactly good at understanding RNG. It's like people think that a 90% chance to hit is basically guaranteed, which it is true, but it's also like a 10% chance to fail, which is like it's not big, but there's definitely a chance to fail, right?
Yeah.
And I think when I've heard people talk about this, they often say like, oh yeah, people misunderstand RNG, so you need to like fudge it in their favor so that they don't get angry or whatever. And it's like, no, that's a skill issue of the player in a way.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
If the player assumes that a 90% chance to hit is going to succeed, he's bad at the game. Because like, as I said, 10%, it's not a lot, but it's like, it can happen, right? It can happen regularly.
Yeah. And it also, probability or whatever you want to call it, right? Is a more general thing, right? So you're basically messing with that person's perception of probabilities. Which is, it's bad. That's all I can say. Like, you could argue you saw this person is gonna, if they play this game for a lot of time, right? At least they're gonna be good at RNG. But if the RNG is lying, and they're not even gonna be able to do that, right? Yeah.
I think I guess what I was trying to say is that like lying to the player to make them not have to learn your game is like. That's kind of lame, I guess.
Yeah, that's what I said. It's lame.
Yeah.
I don't know why people find that acceptable at all, actually.
Yeah, no.
It's one of those things where sometimes I can see why the designers end up at certain points, even though I disagree. But this is just lame. I don't know.
Yeah, like it doesn't even make sense, because if someone wanted to become really good at the game, they would learn that, right? They would learn that the RNG is not real RNG.
Yeah.
They would learn that like a 90% chance to hit is actually a 98.
Yeah.
And so it kind of becomes pointless to lie about it, because now you've just forced a player who's good at the game to take your number that's lying and like translate that into the actual RNG number. So it's like you're actually sort of making the game harder to learn in a way, right? Yeah. Because if you know that the RNG is like rigged, you can use that to your advantage.
Yeah.
There was something I wanted to say that I forgot about. Do you have anything you want to say meanwhile, while I try to remember?
I mean, don't do rigged RNG.
Yeah.
I guess. Yeah,
go ahead.
Yeah, I'm thinking.
I mean, we could move on to the big discussion about the two types of RNG, as they're often called, if you want to do that.
Yeah. There is another thing I want to bring up, but that probably
do that first then. We'll save it for the end.
Yeah. So we've been talking a lot about RNG that how should I say this? It is direct gameplay RNG. So you do a thing, or I don't know. I'm bad at explaining this. You have the RNG happens as you do an action or whatever, right?
Yeah. So it's like you shoot someone and then there's a dice roll and you see if it hits.
Yeah, and I think RNG gets a bad rap even in other scenarios. For example, a game that I think is very interesting is Ghosts and Goblins Resurrection.
Mm-hmm.
Because that game, it's a platformer.
Mm-hmm.
But the way... how most modern platformers work, right? Is you have some set enemies placed, right? And there is this... Because they think about speedrunners and stuff, right? Yeah. And so... Or something, right? They want it to be consistent. So they place the enemies like this. And if you know how to play the thing, you just do the thing and you beat it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there is like roguelikes and stuff that do different things, but that's a bit different from this. So what this game does, and probably its predecessors, I haven't played them. It's called predecessors, right? Yeah. Is it has like spawn zones.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very chaotic, I think is a good word.
Yeah.
It's like chaos-oriented design or whatever, where you have the player needs to play in a way that is really interesting, and it's actually very uncommon in modern games, and I think it's a lot of games would benefit from this, because what happens is right, there's zones of enemies that could potentially spawn. They could potentially spawn in different spots at different times. They could have different movement speeds. Their attacks could come out at different times, right? It's super duper RNG heavy, right? All the things the enemies do, almost, is like tweaked with random numbers, which makes super simple interactions, like they shoot you or whatever. Very, very, very hard to play around. Because you need to play in this super duper careful way, where you don't know you know that he could shoot now or he could shoot later or whatever, right? Or they could be an enemy pop up here or not. And so it makes these really, really interesting scenarios that are very like it creates depth because there's a lot of potential scenarios, right? It's not the same, so it's gonna be like to make I know how to explain this now. So if you want to make that scenario consistent, like you have one of the levels or whatever in that game, you can't just have a route, or you can have a route, but that route needs to be way more complicated than if the game was static. Because if it was static, you could just route it, but now you need to like consider all the different permutations from the RNG. And I think that is super, super underrated.
Yeah. So like, you're saying that like, you know, even changing something as simple as like, oh yeah, this person could spawn between here and here, that already like creates a lot of variety, I guess.
Yeah, and then
without
you,
really
and
doing
then you
anything
do
else.
that with every single thing that could happen. And then it's like so many permutations that you can't keep track of them. So you need to play in a way where you basically, again, back to risk mitigation, right? It's instead of saying, oh, I can stand here, it's like, oh, there's a 20% chance that I die if I stand here, and then you need to think if I should stand here now or not, right?
Exactly. And I think that's sort of to like hammer home the topic of today. It's like, I think a lot of people would call that like bullshit RNG. Like, oh, he can spawn here randomly for some reason. Whoa, that's BS. But like, no, that's your fault that you stood where he could spawn. Like, you are at fault for that. You should stand in a place where he can spawn if you want to be safe. So yeah, I think that's a very good point.
Yeah, and I think, again, more games should do that, because that game is like an action game, right? It's not a strategy game. So I feel like for strategy games there have been sort of I mean, obviously it was a while back now, but there's been a resurgence, right, of that style of design where you use RNG to create the challenge. And I think turn-based games kind of need it more as well, because there is,
because otherwise everything would be chess basically. Like everything would just be, you're calculating like 500 years ahead of time what you're gonna do, because you know everything that's gonna happen.
Yeah, so the thing there is, right, that people then think that, okay, but for action games you don't want that, but because that is bullshit or whatever, right? Because you want the challenge to be the challenge. But I don't know. I think that's wrong. I think there is a lot there, right? I think it increases the. I guess it increases the strategical depth of an action game.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, it's sort of the same as my like spread example with CS, right? It's like if there wasn't spread, you could use an SMG to snipe someone, right? If you were good enough. If you like practiced for a billion hours, you could snipe someone with an SMG. But the fact that the slight RNG in the spread is there means that you can't. And all of a sudden it becomes like a tactical decision what to do with your SMG, right?
Yeah.
I think it's sort of similar in that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. I once again had something I want to say. Yeah, I guess this is sort of like, I don't remember if we spoke about this in a previous episode or if we spoke about this not on the podcast, but it's like, you know, we talked about like how run-based games are a lot about like, or like can be a lot about like RNG and like mitigating risks.
Yeah.
I guess I don't know where I want to go with this, because I feel like
it works.
This could be
the thing is, this sort of RNG works really well, I would say, in run-based games, but most people would disagree about that. Most people would say they want a run-based game to be very static because they want it to be consistent. But I would argue the other way, that a game that is I need to explain some things here, right? So if you can think of it as a spectrum between a run-based game and I don't know, challenge-based games, like individual challenge, checkpoint-based, yeah.
Yeah.
So in one corner you have the checkpoint-based, and the other you have run, okay?
Yeah.
And what people will argue, I mean, in both ends, right, is that this high chaos thing, lots of RNG is bad, because for a run you want it to be consistent, and for the checkpoint you want it to be consistent. But I would argue, if you're making something that is extremely checkpoint based, so the extreme case would be like a puzzle game, then you don't want that much RNG, because you're gonna do that challenge one, and if the variety of, because if you add a lot of RNG, the challenge is gonna vary a lot, and you don't want that if you're only doing the challenge once. Whereas in a run-based game, it's super good, because that is gonna make the game way harder, because it's not as consistent, and some section, it's gonna create a lot of variety in the sections, right?
Exactly, right? Because the typical example I always love to talk about when we talk about this is Celeste, right? Yeah. Because Celeste is like, there's like a screen, and there's a checkpoint at the beginning of the screen, and then you do like 1 or 2 jumps, and then there's another checkpoint.
Yeah.
And like
having randomness there wouldn't really.
Exactly, because like Celeste is a pretty hard game, right? Yeah. And so if you had a bunch of RNG, like Celeste doesn't have RNG, by the way, I want to be clear, it doesn't have RNG. But if you would have had RNG, you could have like, because the checkpoints are like so close, you could get lucky once and then do the jump, and then you could just move on, and you wouldn't have learned the jump, right?
Yep.
Whereas in a run-based game, a game where you're like playing from the beginning to the end, in like an old arcade game or something like that, RNG, like those kinds of games are a lot more about like being consistent, I guess. Yes. It's not about like, oh yeah, this one jump is really hard, I need to do it perfectly in order to land it. It's like all of the individual things in a run-based game are like maybe not easy, but they're not super hard. But then like the hard part comes from like doing it consistently for like 30 minutes or however long the game is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is also, by the way, like tying it back to strategy games.
Yeah.
A reason why strategy games that have like a lot of checkpoints or whatever don't really work, because you can have it after like a level or whatever.
That's a very good point.
But you need the you need some time, because if it's turn-based, for example, the RNG decides the outcome, so you can't just do one dice roll and see did you win or not, right? There needs to be a lot of dice rolls and a lot of decisions made between the two to mitigate or whatever, right? The single instance of randomness. Because the funny thing about randomness is the more randomness you add, the more skill-based it is.
Yeah.
Like the more
necessarily.
Rolls. Yeah, it does. Like, because if you have one roll, that's not that skill-based. But if you have 500 rolls, that's skill-based, right? More skill-based than one roll.
Yeah. Okay. So I get, but like, you don't need to have RNG to make a skill-based game.
No.
But like, if you have RNG, having more RNG is more skill-based. Okay. Yeah, because like statistics and whatever.
Yeah, because you need to make more good decisions, and if there's a lot of randomness, then some of them are gonna mitigate each other, right? So you need to play around the ones that are bad with the ones that are good. I mean, obviously, it still needs to be a well-designed game. It can't just be.
Yeah. There was something I wanted to say about that. Fuck. Yeah. No, I completely forgot.
Remember,
what were we talking about?
We were talking about RNG, and having more of it in turn-based games is good. And run-based, turn-based.
Yeah, whatever. Let's move on. I forgot. Yeah. Oh yeah, I know what I was going to talk about now. And that's, we've been talking about run-based games here.
Yes.
And there's a quite big elephant in the room here, I think, when talking about run-based games that we haven't acknowledged yet.
Okay.
And that's the good old-fashioned roguelite.
Well, that well, you can start, I guess, but I have a point.
No, go ahead.
Yeah,
go ahead.
no, I was gonna say that ties into something we wanted to bring up earlier, which is there's a lot of discussion about there being a distinction between certain kinds of RNG. So what is commonly referred to output and input RNG.
Yeah. Which one is which? I always forget.
Yeah,
explain
I forget as well. Or I remember which is which, but I don't remember how to explain them. So input RNG is RNG that essentially happened before your decision. Okay. And output RNG is
generated level.
Yeah, and output RNG is what happens after your decision.
So like in XCOM, you shoot someone and
you do something and then the RNG happens.
Yeah.
And the funny thing about these two, I mean, some people say that both are nice or whatever, right? But most people agree that the one that is called input RNG, so things that happen before, is really good because it creates variety, and the one that is after, output RNG, is bad because the player can't predict that. And to me that is really interesting, because I find every time if a game has a lot of input RNG, or whatever you want to call it, right?
Yeah.
Randomness before the decision, that's just boring and uninteresting. Whereas if there's a lot of RNG after my decision, which means that I need to play, I need to do something to mitigate the output is more risk mitigation, right? That is interesting. That is really interesting. But the other part, the part that like shuffles the stage or whatever, that's honestly, I would go as far as to say that it's bad.
Yeah, like I think my problem with it is that like input RNG is kind of pointless, because the point of RNG is to make it unpredictable, right?
Well, the argument is that it makes, like, so for roguelites, like you said, you can shuffle the stages. You can make can make infinite stages. That's the argument, right?
Yeah.
Which is honestly not interesting at all, in my opinion.
Yeah, exactly.
But I mean, a lot of people think that that's like, oh, infinite content, so nice. But
but it's not. I'd rather just have like a well-designed level
for sure.
at that point.
I mean, that's the biggest issue, that the level is actually the quality is lower, right?
Exactly.
But it's also
it's like because like right. I'll try to explain what I mean. Like the point of RNG, like in XCOM, for example, the point of the RNG is that you're supposed to not exactly know how your actions are gonna go, right? So that you can't 100% predict everything that's gonna happen and like calculate it 10 times ahead.
Yeah.
Right. That's sort of the point of having RNG in a game is, and like, so the only reason to have input RNG, because input RNG doesn't give that, right? Input RNG says like, here's the randomized board with the enemies. Now do whatever you want.
And to be clear,
right?
this is also very fussy, because you can like argue a lot of them are the same. I don't even know if I agree with the terms, because
Well, I have something to say about that later, but let me finish first. What was I saying? Yeah, so like the input RNG, right? It creates a level, whatever, and it's like, at that point the RNG doesn't matter, because like, yes, it has created a different scenario, but it's sort of like it doesn't change the predictability of the game, right? When I've looked at the level, it's no longer unpredictable, right? I guess.
Yeah.
You get what I'm trying to say?
It's not actually that random, basically. It's just
exactly.
It's just a bit shuffled around, or like I get what you're saying, and I agree.
But I wanted to, because you mentioned that like it's kind of fussy about which is which, and what I think is kind of funny is, I think I've heard this mentioned somewhere before, but it's like input RNG and output RNG can kind of be seen as basically the same thing, because you could argue that, for example, if I were to shoot someone in XCOM and my shot would either be able to hit or be able to miss, that would be input RNG for the next turn when I'm making my new decisions, right? So it's like they kind of are the same thing.
Yeah. I mean, my favorite example is Dicey Dungeons.
Yeah.
Because so if we apply this thing that the RNG, if we say that the definition of input RNG is that the RNG happened before your decision, then Dicey Dungeons, which is a game where it's a turn-based game where you roll a bunch of dice and then you do actions based on what those die are, right?
Yeah.
You can then argue that, okay, that's input RNG, right? Because you roll the dice and then you decide what to do, and then there's obviously like some output RNG in that, right? Because sometimes you get new moves or whatever in that game.
Yeah.
But the thing is, to me, that's not at all. It doesn't match that definition of input RNG. It matches the definition, but it's not. Like the way you play with the RNG in that game is essentially risk mitigation again, right?
Yeah.
So it's not doing the shuffling thing. So it's not. It still creates that frustration, sort of, right? That's output RNG does because.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just gonna say that because like you get whatever die you get, and then you roll them, or you use them, and then. Yeah, I don't know. It's in theory it is input, but it doesn't feel like that to me.
I think one way you could look at it is that because Dicey Dungeons is sort of like a deck builder, I guess. It's like you have a bunch of abilities and you can have a limited number of abilities, and these abilities use certain dice. And so I think a way you could look at it is that like I have designed my deck or like my sets of abilities or whatever
around certain numbers
around the RNG, right? So it's like, for example, you can have a card that can reroll the dice, or you could have a card that halves the dice and like gives you 2 dice but with a lower value, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, so you're building your deck around that sort of thing happening. So in a sense, what people call input RNG in Dicey Dungeons is actually output RNG that happens like way later because you designed your deck when you weren't in combat, right? You kind of get
that's
what I'm trying to
why I
say.
don't like the terms at all. I think a better distinction to do, because that's how I look at them, right? So I don't look at them as input and output. I look at them as input being you shuffle stuff. That's shuffling, right? So shuffling a deck of cards is input RNG or whatever. Mm-hmm. But I think, output is risk mitigation. So that's sort of how I would distinguish it. That there is interesting shuffling, right? You can do shuffling that is interesting, but that's not that interesting. What's really interesting is risk mitigation. So you have RNG that you have to play around, as opposed to RNG that changes the order or whatever.
Yeah. I think that's.
But the point is again that most people would argue that risk mitigation is bad, the bad RNG, right?
Yeah.
Which is usually referred to output RNG.
Yeah. I think the main reason they think that is because they don't see it as risk mitigation in a way. I think they see it as like, oh yeah, this is the BS RNG that like makes XCOM luck based or whatever. Which is like, that's not true. It's risk mitigation, right?
Yeah. I mean, maybe it ties back to like playtesting and stuff that we've talked about in the past, where they have these people sit down and then they get frustrated because they didn't hit their 8 out of 10.
There was an 80% chance to hit.
And then they go, we need to fix that, which, I don't know.
And like, bro, that's a 20% chance to miss. That's pretty high.
That's what we call a skill issue.
Yeah. I think that's actually pretty good, because I've always seen it as like, I guess, variety RNG versus unpredictability RNG, but I think your way of saying it is a bit better. Because it's like, I think
like one is strategic and the other is just variety, basically, I guess.
Well, I wouldn't say it's just variety, because like if we take shuffling a deck like into account, like if we take,
I mean, you could argue that's why I said I'm not sure about the shuffling, because
because
oh boy, we could bring up another example. Yeah, I think you're gonna bring up the same example.
We're thinking of the same game, Dominion, right?
Dominion, exactly.
Yeah.
Where you do actually risk mitigate the shuffling, right?
Exactly.
You
play because
but it's not the shuffling itself. So yeah, no, it is. It is actually.
It is. Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really
for those of you who don't know, Dominion, it's like a deck builder where you're like collecting. It's like you need to basically, without going in and explaining the entire game, a very important part of that game is basically managing your deck size so that you have enough good cards, but also so you don't have too many cards, because you want your draw to be predictable, right? In a way. Am I explaining it in a good way? Do you agree?
I understand it.
Yeah. Okay, good. So it's like, because in that game, the shuffling becomes the risk mitigation in a way. It's like, if I buy another card, like maybe that card is good, but maybe it's gonna fuck up my draw so that I can't keep playing cards, right?
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden, the shuffling is risk mitigation again. So it's like,
I think
it kind of goes back to they are the same thing in a way.
I think the thing is that you can't put concretely a thing. I'm explaining this poorly. What I mean is, so shuffling doesn't necessarily mean like shuffling can be risk mitigation oriented, right? So for example, in that game there you have very few cards, so it becomes very risk mitigation heavy or whatever, and you want to play around. It's very important to get the right cards, whereas in some games you essentially have no control over it, right? It's just randomizing your cards basically.
Yeah, I guess
so. It depends on the game as well. I don't think you can put, because you could argue that you could probably make a game where you shuffle the stages, and that would cause risk mitigation, right? Somehow, like you get the hard stage, so you need to do something because you know that the next stage is gonna be the easy stage or whatever, right? Yeah. Something like that. But from like, if we take the really really classic example, it's like roguelikes, where you they don't generate. I mean, obviously there is different ones, but the ones I'm thinking of, they like generate dungeons and whatever, right? And that's like very generation heavy. So it's not the design rooms that are shuffled together or whatever. It generates like a path in a cave or whatever, right? And that's, I don't think anyone is thinking like risk mitigation in that scenario, right? It's just creating variety.
Yeah. Maybe variety RNG is the way to explain it then.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, variety RNG versus risk mitigation. Yeah, I guess it's also a lot less fussy than input and output, because what the fuck do those mean?
Yeah, like
it's yeah.
Yeah, because like you said, you can argue back and forth about what is input and output to another thing and how that affects the other thing.
Yeah.
But I just find it interesting that, because the way I play games, it's not that shuffling is not interesting. It can be really interesting, right? But I don't want the variety for variety's sake, or what. That's a very bad way of saying it. What I mean is, I sort of like my games being sort of predictable. Like, it's sort of like walking down a familiar street or whatever, right? I like the RNG where it's like, so like we said with Ghosts and Goblins, right? Where there is a lot of RNG that forces me to play differently. But I also like having some sort of consistency about what happens when and stuff.
Yeah. I think maybe what you're trying to say is like, you don't like content RNG in a way.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't like roguelites most of the time.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, because I'd rather have like the gameplay be RNG based than the level be RNG based, because what ends up happening is that, like, if you look at most roguelikes, what ends up happening, likes. This time I'm gonna say it right. No, wait, it's lights. Never mind. Yeah, I said it wrong again. We should come up with a new term. No, but roguelites, what ends up happening in those
input
levels
RNG
is that
likes.
they all they all feel super generic, right? It's like it doesn't matter that the level is random, because the level doesn't matter because it always feels generic in a way. And I'd rather just have a super well designed, interesting level where there's like an enemy who has a super RNG attack or something, if you want the variety. Or
but the thing is, I feel like the designers want that. It seems, from like listening to what they are saying, it seems like that's the point. They want it to be random, but they don't want the risk mitigation. They want it to be super predictable. Like, they want someone that has played it once to always be able to beat it the same way. But they want it to be random. So, I think to me, that's so backwards. Because I don't want it to be random. I want to be like, oh, I go here and I go here. But then one time I went there was this, super scary thing. And the other time, maybe there wasn't, right? And so like there is variety. That's like the challenge level is different every time or whatever.
I think maybe one of the reasons why this like roguelite generating level has become so popular is because it kind of forces you not to do good level design in a way.
Yeah.
Because like as I said, the level usually doesn't matter. Like if you look at like roguelikes, where as you said there's like dungeon regeneration and stuff, those levels probably matter. I haven't played many roguelikes, but like if you're talking about generic roguelike light platformer number 31, it's like the level doesn't really matter. Like it's I'm in the lava area now. It's the same as it's always in the lava area, but I have to take a slightly different path. It doesn't really matter. Yeah. I would rather just have a well-designed lava area.
I agree.
Yeah.
Because the funny thing is like the better ones. For example, I would argue Spelunky is pretty decent, right?
Yeah.
If you read about how they did that, it's like they designed a bunch of rooms and then they just connected them. So all the individual scenarios in that game are handcrafted. It's just like shuffling which ones you get, which is I mean, I would rather have completely handcrafted level, but it makes sense why I like that more, because it's like it gives you sort of a little bit of variety about which challenges you face, but the challenges are always let's say, or whatever. Yeah, I guess that is. I don't know. Yeah, it's a fuzzy topic.
Yeah, it's RNG. Of course, it's fuzzy. That's the point. Yeah, I don't know. Do you have anything else you want to say?
No, not that I can think of.
Yeah, I think we've had a good discussion today. Hopefully, if anyone listens, you've learned a lot. Or if you disagree, you should send hate mail to us.
Write a lot of comments. Lots of comments, and
so I guess thanks for like and subscribe as always.
Or even
don't ring the bell because notifications are annoying.
I mean, you can do that if you want.
No.
Okay.
All right, so thanks for listening, everybody. Goodbye.
Bye.